Good afternoon, friends, and welcome back to my channel. Do you know of a vegetable that you can eat all parts of the plant? Well, one that comes to mind for me is the table beet, also known scientifically as Beta vulgaris. Table beets have three main parts, including beet roots, the petioles, and the beet greens. Being able to eat all parts of a beet is beneficial because this will reduce the amount of food waste that we have in table beet production. When I was in my undergraduate program at university, I did a thesis project on maximizing both high quality and quantity of table beet production, looking at maximizing all edible plant parts. And for the project, I looked at comparing two different varieties of beets that I obtained from Thesis seeds. I will mention up front that this video is not being endorsed or promoted for Thesis, although I personally highly recommend their seed because it is very high quality and it performed very well in my project. And I also looked at the different time intervals at which it would be optimal to harvest beet greens off of the plant, leaving the beet roots in the ground for a longer period of time to grow and try to get as big of a size as possible. Just before I get into the different treatments and the results of the project, I just want to briefly talk about some of the photosynthetic and physiological mechanisms by which this process occurs. With a table beet, we know that they photosynthesize through the sun and the heat energy, and then we call the leaves the source within the plant, and then they are transported by phloem tissues through these petioles into our sink, also known as the beetroot or the table beet itself, where we have the accumulation of sugars or photosynthates. We know that when you take a knife or scissors or any other type of cutting tool and physically cut beet greens off of your table beet, you are inducing stress to the plant because this is something that the plant is not initiating itself. By doing this cutting event, we are inducing oxidative stress on the plant. And this actually promotes the peroxidase enzymes, which then are activated to cause the development of new petioles off of the base of the beet root. And so this is just an interesting observation that I have seen in some of my research work. And you may also have noticed this if you grow table beets and cut some of the beet greens off, is this bidirectional movement of these sugars based on different events that happen over the growth and development and different human-induced procedures. However, this project looked at harvesting beet greens at 6 weeks after planting. We had a second treatment looking at harvesting beet greens at 6 and 12 weeks after planting, in which we would have certain plants marked off that were cut at 6 weeks with the beet roots still left in the ground, only removing the beet greens, and then going back to those same plants and recutting at 12 weeks. So you essentially are getting 2 harvests of your beet greens. We also had a third treatment looking at harvesting beet greens only at 12 weeks after planting. And then finally, at 13 weeks, we harvested all of the beet roots from the trial. And this allowed us to assess the quality of the beet roots and to look at things such as the color, the firmness, the texture, if there was a development perhaps of any cracks that were coming off of the beet roots. Now you can see on this particular one, we have a crack there developing, And I did notice that in my project, the cracks were more likely to develop if the plants were left in the ground over a longer period of time, particularly after their optimal growth period, which we typically think of as 55 to 60 days, although there can be a little bit of variation depending on the variety that you're planting. With my particular project, I found that when beet greens were cut off the plants at 6 weeks, they had nice, juicy, tender greens that were of optimal quality for human consumption. And those that were cut at 6 and 12 weeks resulted in the highest yields because you had 2 cuttings off the plants. Although the beet greens that were harvested at 12 weeks did not have quite as nice of a quality because the stems did start to get a little bit tougher and hard compared to those that were a bit more tender and juicy at 6 weeks. So there was a little bit of a trade-off between getting the best quality and getting the highest yields. And so I was not actually able to see the best combination of both, although I would suggest that if you had to pick the best of all the options or the treatments, that probably harvesting at 6 and 12 weeks was the best, because you got your tender juicy greens at 6 weeks and then you got a second batch at 12 weeks that were perhaps not quite as nice, but they still were fine to eat and still very healthy. And then when we discussed the beetroots, we found that the biggest beetroots were those that were harvested from the treatments that were not cut previously at 6 and 12 weeks. Although we did find that the overall quality of the beetroots was really not all that different between the different treatments, because the beetroots themselves all looked generally fairly similar. And when we looked at weights and qualitative attributes, there wasn't quite as much difference there. So I think definitely in terms of comparing the different treatments, there was definitely more of a visual distinction in the beet green analysis. Than there was in the beetroots themselves. I had actually generated my own little table or my template where I had a quality scoring that I would use to grade or rate these different beets from the different treatments. I thought this was a really interesting project because we know that there's a lot of food waste in our world, and it's becoming an increasingly large problem in many parts of the world. I'm speaking from my North American perspective, but I think it's great if we can grow more fruits and vegetables in ways where we can cut down on our food waste. So for you, if that's table beets, if that's one vegetable that you enjoy, and that's something that you can eat all parts of the plant of without wasting it, I think this is a great opportunity to look at growing table beets and then harvesting them in optimal intervals at which they can be consumed and not go to waste. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comment section and I will get back to you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, because that way it notifies me that you like the content that I'm producing. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel and you would like to do so to receive notifications when I post new content, please do that now. And I just want to thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you will eat the beets if you like them as well. So have a great day, friends, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.